Hi, it is the human operating system time. So after I share the video on why is Wing Chun not working facing MMA, I got many messages from our friends and also discussed in certain uh, traditional Chinese martial art forum. And one of the topic come up is, will Wing Chun reform? Will Wing Chun reform? So the questions many ask me is, will Wing Chun reform? Now, I want to make this thing clear, okay? So I'm saying in a perspective of history and educations, not on who is the best fighter, who is the ultimate Wing Chun grandmaster, those things. Okay, so look at that as in a university, we study on history and what happened. And so we can predict what happened next, because human behavior really don't change much. Now the answer for these questions, will Wing Chun reform? The answer is no. It will not. Okay. So why not? Now let's go back to 1560, the time of General Qi Ji Guang. Okay. Prior to General Qi Ji Guang, the Ming army, about 20,000 army, cannot even fight about the hundreds of Japanese pirates. And they can have a standoff there for 6 months, cannot do anything with it, or do very little to do with it. And then the Shaolin monk come down to the southern China to help out, and the Shaolin monks actually have some result, but at the end they also sacrifice, so they cannot clean up the issue. Now General Qi Ji Guang have to or had to recruit his own new army, okay, his new army, because his old army, the old Ming army which is assigned to him, is not trained to do the job. So General Qi Ji Guang has to get the budget, start the new army, do everything in terms of technology, and obviously that involve many general which is supporting. It's just a team, okay. And if you read my book Wing Chun Matrix, there's a Tang Sun Zhi, General Tang Sun Zhi is one of the person supporting and also contribute for General Qi Ji Guang's reform. Okay. So at that time you see there are so many Chinese martial art there, and the style and so forth is just there. Okay, and General Qi Ji Guang has to start something new. So that is from the history perspective. And at the time where in history, why is General Qi Ji Guang times that people don't reform? Because it get involved in a lot of politics, a lot of benefit. It is like something like a corporations in Silicon Valley, when it get through a few decades, you can see all the politics, and the system is no longer function because every department have their own agenda due to their politics. And again, you know, we cannot blame people because it becomes survival things in the corporate. So those are the first priority. It's no longer the corporation. So it's the same time in the General Qi Guang's era that reform is not our first priority. To get by might bring somebody more benefit. And so it is human, okay? We human doing those kind of stuff. That's one thing. Another thing is people have this royal to their teacher, their sifu, their lineage. They're royal to that, but they are not royal to what is the art about. If you read in the history, many is like that. People are royal to their teacher, to their grand teacher, to their family, but they do not royal to the art. So like in the corporations, right? People might royal to their CEO, but the CEO agenda might not be that to reform that corporation. And of course, there might be too many agenda, too much political in the corporations, and too much benefit exchange in the corporation that the CEO cannot touch it. So like you working in the corporate, are you going to royal to the incorporations and the people, or you royal to the CEO? There's a big question there. And often you can see people who royal with the people, and the company get fired. And also there's an inner circle that if you be with, then you want to be royal to them. You know, like in upper management and so forth. So around the world, this is just human life. Okay. So there is 400 something years ago. Look at Bruce Lee. Didn't Bruce Lee starting a reform? Bruce Lee, who lived 50 years ago, the 50 miles, about 50 miles away from where I sit here, about 50 years ago in Oakland, didn't he start a reform? He sees something. He knows something is need to change, but what happened at that time? And what happened? Really that thing changed after he passed away? Or we just using his name, by his name, that we can do better marketing? But do we really see what Bruce Lee present? What he present that he want us to change? The answer is it yes or is it not? So this is human, okay? This is human. That's why I don't want to deal with all this kind of thing. I like to do with the educations and the Chinese culture, okay? And that on this, why cannot reform? Because they're also a part of us human. We like to, you know, beside to say, no, my grandfather, my father know it the best, or so forth. And well, I know it the best, okay? So I can go read some philosophy books or history books, and then I start have my opinion. And I will not accept whatever people say. And I'll argue the heck, even if I have no idea what is going on. And sometimes we don't really know what it is. We just want to argue for argue because, you know, again, human. Okay. As I told you the story that I argue with late Venerable Yuan Ying, the top Buddhist Zen scholar and accomplished teacher of Buddhism. It took me 13 years digging into it to know, oh shoot, I screwed up big time. I was traveling thinking on different direction, and he is telling me another dimension. It's very different. Like you think it's in this direction when it is actually there's another dimension of thing which is I never even see. What happened to me? So who to blame? What to blame? It's just human. And that's why we need educations. Without educations, it is a mess. So Wing Chun reform? No, because it involved too many people. Like if you set a time stamp 60 years ago, 60 years is 3 generations. 60 years ago, somebody presents some kind of Wing Chun concept, and then it continue on, and today is 60 years already. And at the 40-year mark point, around late 1970 or early 1980, when the competition with the Kyokushin, you already see that is some kinds of issue there. But it's not fixed. By 1996, you see more issue there. It's not fixed. And by 2 years ago, when Ding Hao was defeated by the Xi Xiaodong, it's not fixed. Everybody keep quiet, right? And then the blame is in Ding Hao, the guy who fought Xi Xiaodong. And actually, there are some discussion with other friends in Asia in the forum. People say, well, you know, those guy Wing Chunner who fought Xi Xiaodong is the guy who don't train. Well, I asked him to go watch Ding Hao, the guy who fought Xi Xiaodong, when he fought other people. It's in YouTube, in YouTube. Okay. So not too quick to jump on the gun to say, oh, this guy don't train, that guy don't train. There's a lot of issue there. And it's always easy to sit down there. In my opinion, Ding Hao never trained well when he fought Xi Xiaodong. What are you talking about? Again, they come to educations. Do you know what is happening there? In terms of momentum handling, in terms of the tools needed, in terms of the body conditioning. Well, let's open up this. Say body conditioning is the most important in those kind of competitions. I have exchanged ideas with top grandmaster in Fatsan, China, whose student or grand student in this generation is fighting in competitions, winning champion. The bottom line is the body conditioning. Now in the West, we know there are 5 zones of training, okay? The 5 heart rate zone of training. The 5th zone is going to the maximum heart rate. The 4th zone is getting very tough, where one breathe heavily and one need to train if one is professional, where I get to 80-90% of one's heart rate. People who is amateur, who is not trained, if they go up to the 4th heart rate zone, body can get destroyed. Okay, go to the 5th zone. It is easy to damage body. Now look at the MMA guy, the pro. They train in that zone, the 4th and the 5th zone, and how long they can last there. Now you look at the usual people, do they even know about this 5th zone of training? You look at the Thai boxer, you look at the Kyokushin. They train 4 and 5 zone. You look at the Western boxer, they train 4 and 5 zone. And then they have this orthostatic test where see how their heart rate can come down, how fit they are. If you don't have that, what are you going to do? You expect that to practice Xiu Lim Tao and Qi Sao and then banging the sun punch to the wall back, and then some sparring to replace those type of training? No. And does everybody can go there? No. Depend on the physical, the wellness too. So this is a very complex issue. And I brought this up. As what I say again and again, it's about education. It is about education. So what's my agenda? My agenda is very simple. Whatever in the past, we need to present it to everybody. So everybody have an access of understanding. And not such thing as, you can see how many people is quoting like the Lao Zhi, Dao De Jing, or Dao Mimic Nature. This is Jing, that is Jing Qi Shen. Well, not that. Not those philosophy and using words to explain words. You want to know? Taking the experience from what it is, directly present it in today's language. Like this, the 5 zone of the 5 heart rate zone of training. Does the Chinese have it? Yes. If you look at the Shaolin short strike canon, it says that the first thing you need to get into the low abs breathing so that your breathing is fluent, as what I call in my book Wing Chun Matrix, the 2C state. You need to get into that so that there's your respiratory system, your cardio, you have to get that. And then when you train to strike, you need to strike as hard as possible. As hard as possible. And then after you're fluent, you will become more effective and efficient, and that's where it softened the movement. That is what it is written clearly in the Shaolin short strike canon. But today you look at that. Also, I want to practice internal, so I start with slow. You never get there. And actually, in that document, the Shaolin document, short strike document, it said that if you start with slow, soft, you will never get there. Wow, this is exactly what it is. The 4th and 5th zone type of training. You don't have the body to do it. Okay. So my idea is to present this in educations, and it is what I'm doing. Actually, I think the country of China need to do it in their university, but because if nobody do it, I have the hobby to do it, so I do it. Okay. And because I funded myself, so I don't have to take anybody's political view. I will just tell straight to you what the heck it is. And how is this information later will evolve? Well, it will evolve as what I'm suggesting these few days now, fused with the sports science, measure the heart rate. We know the heart rate zone training. We know the heart rate variability testing. And so what the ancient do can be transferred to today's world. And also this is not the ultimate. Only if we know that we can transfer to today's world using all this gadget to measure it, We know what it is, then we can improve it. We can get the result. We know what it is. We can get the result, and we can improve it. It's not about like the Chinese kung fu movie. Always somebody have to be number one in the world, the best style, who beat who, those kind of stuff. It's not that. Okay, I'm dealing with culture. I'm not dealing with martial arts. I'm dealing with the cultural thing. So later on, this piece of information will, of course, spread out, and people will use it in different ways. And for example, like the 5 zone of the heartbeat, the 5 zone training. If you look into the sports today, people have that 5 zone, and then you have the resting zone. Okay, the resting zone. So you have the training load with this 5 zone and the recovery. And now you need to look into this. Okay, say for example you're training 修炼套 sets. At first, when you stand there, it is a 站桩. Then the heart rate has to go to the resting zone. And then the 修炼套 is a recovery, and it is a warm up and a moderate training type of practice. So it go to mostly is at the 2nd zone, 1st and the 2nd zone, and then it gets some of the 3rd zone, but it never get up to 4th and 5th zone, because this is to recover the body, to maintain the body, to develop the body, to condition the body, so one can go to the 4th and the 5th zone. Okay, so we know what it is. Okay, it's not just, hey, I got this document from Yikam. Yikam is 1850s from Red Boat. I'm the direct transmission from the Cho family for 4 generations, and I'm the 5th generations. Even though I don't have the same last name with the Cho family. And then this is what it is, the writing on the Chinese. No, that's not what it is. The idea is understood, experience what the Red Boat people, the Yikam people talk about. Explain it, present it in today's sports science, the 5 zone, heart rate variability, the resting heart rate, the heart rate recovery, and then you have this 4 momentum zone and so forth. Otherwise, it's just spinning in the head. Now, looking back, you look at Chinese culture today. How many of the people is spinning on their head? Like for example, it's just a few days ago, there's a special medical doctor talk to me. Well, on there are certain research certain people do in really advanced research in some very famous university, and they are talking about paying attention to the breathing and all those kind of stuff to check on the body and so forth. So I tell him it won't work. It will not work. Why? Because that's not what Buddha teach. Buddha didn't teach that way. Buddha didn't teach that you just sit down there, you just counting your breath, keeping counting your breath, keeping counting your breath. No, that's not what Buddha teach. The Buddha is teaching using the breath to quiet the mind. And at, say, the second lesson of the learning of this counting the breath, one should drop the counting. Because when you're counting the breath, you're still using your thinking mind, or the thinking part, or the thinking function of the mind element. If you want to get into the samadhi, you have to drop that. It's like, for example, if you want to go to sleep, Can you still thinking? He said, well, I thinking, counting 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep, 4 sheep, and continue to count the sheep. Will you get to the sleep? And when you just almost want to sleep, you say, well, let me count sheep again because Buddha teach me that. And then start 1 sheep, 2 sheep. No. The idea is 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep, 4 sheep. Right away you like to fall into the sleep. You drop that sheep, drop that mind, you go into the sleep. And that is where you're going into a different dimension. But you look around the entire world. Even the people in the university and so forth is doing that. So it's going to go nowhere if you take words literally without understand what it is, without be able to get into that state. As I just saying that just now that the 4 heart rate zone type of training. Have anybody monitor that? What the MMA guy did? Look at it. I mean, you look at it that they're using like this HRV for training, applications, all kinds of stuff. HRV, Elite, those applications, all kinds of stuff, for the training people, because they need to train. So you look at there's so many things, and there are so many people involved, and then there are so many benefits, agenda, and survival, and what do you call it, pride. You cannot undo 60 years of pride. No way. It's like General Qi Ji Guang cannot undo whatever the Ming people before him, or general before him's ideas or concept. So he have to start new. Read Bruce Lee's history, and you see that the same thing. So this is not about who is the grandmaster, the ultimate grandmaster, that never exists in this world. Didn't General Qi Ji Guang have to learn things from the Japanese pilot before defeat the Japanese pilot? It never happened that a monk living in some cave, or Taoist living in some caves all know all these things. And today, the 5 heart rate zone type of training is from the Western science. Do we need to learn from that? Sure, because there is a more advanced technology now for monitoring and those things. So this is to share with you today. It is a complex stuff. If we talk about reform, in the history of China, reform seldom happen. In Japan, there's the Meiji reform, which is doing really good. The Chinese in the early 1900s like to do that too. Late 1800 like to do that too, but they lost. The emperors just come down and cut away the reform, and then just imprison the emperor, the last emperor of Qing dynasty, and then he died. Okay, poison him, because the general do not like the reform. The emperors do not like the reforms. It's the same thing as the CEO have his own agenda. It's not about the country. That's what happened. So, for me, I don't want to get involved in this. I only want to do my job to present what happened in the past in today's language. And of course, I cannot be perfect and know it all. But somebody have to do this. As what I said, China University, that's their job, not my job. I'm just an engineer here living in Silicon Valley, and this is just hobby. And so I'm doing that. Okay. So this is to share with you today.